Toward the end of the last ice age, 10 to 25,000 years ago, the first people had migrated into North and South America by way of the Bering Strait. The Ice Age had given way to the growth of vegetation, and by the 14th century, trees covered most of northeast America. Broad-leaved trees thrust their roots deep into the rich soil of valleys and grew so tall and thick that the noonday sun rarely filtered through their interlocking branches. Higher up on hillsides and mountain slopes, coniferous trees grew thick and majestic. And except for the lakes and rivers, primeval forests of northeastern America extended in one vast sweep from swampy south to snowy north. It was in this environment that the woodland Native Americans lived their unique way of life. They lived in small family groups, sharing food gathering places with neighboring woodland families. Everything they used came from the forest. Their food, houses, weapons, utensils, clothing, and medicine came from wood, bark, plants, or the animals and birds of the forest. Woodland native people were semi-nomadic. That is, they moved often throughout the year, following the seasons in search of food sources, hunting grounds, trapping areas, and fishing sites. The fall harvest was a time that the Indians prepared for. In late March or early spring, they found the northern woodland peoples moving to maple groves, where they collected sap from the trees to make maple syrup and sugar. Woodland people did not know about salt, and so sugar was used to season much of their food. It was also used as candy and as a sweet drink. A favorite treat for children was maple sugar candy cones, like those you can see on the display table. In late spring, people set up villages along lakes and rivers, where fish were plentiful. The fish were often dried for later use, especially before winter. In other woodland areas, corn was planted, along with squash, pumpkins, beans, and other root plants. Women and children gathered berries, fruits, and nuts in birch bark containers called mekuks, like this Indian lady is making. Juicy cranberries and strawberries were a favorite fresh fruit. Raspberries and blueberries were often made into a paste or a tasty pudding. Fishing and berry picking continued throughout the summer as the men hunted for small game or fished. The women would sow crops and would tend to the fields while the men were on their hunting trips. At the beginning of fall, families divided into small groups and moved to shallow lakes or streams where wild rice grew. For several weeks, they collected rice and afterwards dried it in big iron kettles. The fall harvest ended with a ceremony to give thanks to the Great Spirit and Mother Earth for the rich and bountiful supplies that were taken from the lakes and streams, for the rice, for the corn and other plants, and all those plants that were taken from the fields and forests, and also for the animals that were hunted for food. After the fall harvest, families moved back to the woods and their base camp homes, where they began to prepare for the winter. In November, the men would set out for the winter hunt in search of mink, otter, muskrat, rabbit, and beaver, and larger animals such as deer, bear, and moose. The women would spend their time storing food for winter use, repairing and making winter clothing, and making household utensils such as those you see on the display table. They made use of the plants that they had gathered to make colorful dyes for clothing or ornaments. Harvest time was not only a time to give thanks, but a time to prepare for the great spirit months of the long winter ahead. Winter was the time for telling stories and passing on traditions. The winter heart fires in the woodland Indians' houses found families and children, especially children, sitting close together, not only to keep warm, but to feel the closeness of being family and a people very much at one with their Mother Earth. At this time of the year, we join in spirit with all native peoples, thankful for our bountiful harvests, and with a renewed respect for native peoples who have shared so much with us and our Mother Earth.